I am Teddy Deef, sometimes. Teddy Deef is the director, co-writer, and lead singer of the OFK project, co-designer of Hyper Light Drifter, co-founder of LA indie games collective Glitch City, and someone on Twitter who you may follow or have muted. Sometimes I am my legal name. They live in LA, they lease a car, they need to cancel their Disney Plus subscription. They try very hard to get a good table when seated at restaurants because their grandmother taught them it was important for being a good host when dining out. But with my close friends, I'm just me, whoever that is. And I'm all those other things unfiltered. I'm going to do my best this morning to speak to you without filter. This talk is all about persona filters. You might know them better as virtual identities, VTubers, virtual bands, or Gorillaz. Let's step back for a second. Hi. I'm up here because I run the OFK project, and for those of you who are not familiar, I will now pitch our video game because that is my job. We Are OFK is a virtual band with an interactive TV series that tells their origin story. It's a heartfelt, vulnerable portrayal of what it costs to make art and what thrives for it. The virtual band are kind of like Gorillaz or KDA, but OFK's band characters are indie, not pop stars, just trying to make it happen like other artists. Let's watch the trailer.
Build me up, tear me down. Come apart, come around. Paralyzed to rely on something bigger than this life. Crystal ball, show me all.
I miss my life, Carter.
All the ways I could fall. I rewind to decide on something bigger than this life. I keep kidding myself, my lovers. I'm just like the others.
I take a piece of me that hurts, and I throw it away.
Fool's gold, still glows. Looks like the real thing. Once more with feeling.
Who's to say what will last?
I thought you had integrity. I'm so jealous, man. To be able to just do the thing you want to be doing.
Once more with feeling.
Yeah, 5 years, there it is. Here they are. This is the band. Clockwise, producer Jay Zhang, keyboardist Itsumi Saito, vocalist Luca LaFay, visual artist Carter Flores, and hologram audio plugin Debug the Cat. OFK are based in Los Angeles, where they played their first show on stage at the Game Awards in 2020. We released our game and EP last fall on Switch, PlayStation, PC. We released a holiday song and music video in December, and just last month we played our first fully live show in LA. I play Luca LaFay in the game and in our music. I act as him in the game, I sing as him in our music. Basically, I'm speaking on this topic today because I've been leading a team that's building and operating virtual identities now for 5 years. I'm going to try to impart what I've learned about virtual identities, their history, how they're created, how they live and die. If there's a character you're considering bringing into virtual existence, consider how they resonate with you. What from my experience you'd emulate, what you'd do differently, what excites you, and what scares you. Bring that to the Q&A at the end, please. Part 1, a brief history of virtual identity. Let's go. So you are already familiar with a lot of virtual identities, probably more than you realize. You probably know Gorillaz, which is Gorillaz, not the Gorillaz, which, my life. A lot of people mistakenly think of them as the first virtual band. They were created in 1998 by artist Jamie Hewlett, known for his comic Tank Girl, and rock star Damon Albarn, who had risen to fame with his band Blur. Gorillaz released their first album in 2001 with a series of animated music videos that introduced the virtual band. I find Gorillaz really interesting because at first for live shows, they hid themselves behind a screen and then animated video projections of the characters played in front. They did this even though their creators were already famous and obviously not a secret. But as the years went on, they've transitioned to letting the musicians be out in front as themselves, less committed to the illusion during live shows. That flexible relationship between artist and virtual identity fascinates me, and I'll explain why in this talk. You probably also know KDA, created by Riot Games in 2018 and composed of 4 characters from their game, League of Legends, reskinned as a pop group. From a business perspective, KDA was created to get Riot more involved in music, to promote League, and to sell League skins, but of course the band has a huge fan base of its own. They're a notable contrast to Gorillaz in that the performers do not own the virtual identities that they perform as. Kind of as a result of that, to date at least on US streaming platforms, KDA have released just 6 songs. But if you're interested in creating virtual identity, there are so many points of reference beyond these big current ones. The more you think of virtual identity as the broad and unexplored space it is, the richer of a history you'll find. To set the stage, I would describe virtual identity as this: a fictional character presented as if they exist in our reality, operated by a person or persons who have their own separate identities. Here are some of my favorites. So this is a starter pack of the lineage of virtual celebrity across television, music, and the internet. ALVIN and the CHIPMUNKS, 1958. Yeah, right? A trio of animated chipmunks first created for a children's song in which the creator, Ross Bagdasarian, pitch shifted his voice to sound like tiny, cute chipmunks. They actually started with just a song, and then the following year they got a comic, which was then developed into a TV series that ran for 1 season and was canceled. Then their original creator and voice died, but the chipmunks did not. They were resurrected in the early 80s for a new TV series, which is probably the one that you know, if you know them, that ran for 8 seasons. So today they are zombie chipmunks with a dead creator, and they have 5 Grammys. In 1966, the Monkees, which by the way has got to be a reference to, or Gorillaz has to be a reference to the Monkees, and I would love to ask them. This one is really weird, and it's my personal favorite point of reference for OFK. The Monkees were a band created in conjunction with a TV show, much like OFK. They were developed by an aspiring filmmaker, Bob Rafelson, who pitched the music and the series to Columbia Records and their TV division, respectively. Musically, they were meant to be kind of America's answer to the Beatles, and in a way, they were. They were very, very popular. They only lasted a few years as a group, but they did well for themselves. They're not animated characters, and the band members go by their real names, but the Monkees started as fictional. They were assembled by a casting call for actors and musicians. Everything that they said and sang on TV was written for them and fiction, but they seemed to exist in the real world. And in fact, the Monkees released albums and played concerts like any other band. What's really fascinating about this one is that at first, the band members were so busy filming the TV show and doing press and stuff that they were kept out of the music and writing and recording process. There was a lot of interesting public backlash and power struggle because of that, and the Monkees eventually took control of their own music, narrowing the gap between their virtual identities and their real ones. What makes this especially interesting to me is that most of their peers at the time, including the Beatles, used session musicians for recordings, so the line of how one-to-one any musician is to their band identity is already blurry. 1994, Space Ghost, another virtual identity. Cartoon Network transformed Space Ghost, a superhero from a 1966 cartoon, into a talk show host in a show called Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It was a spoof on talk shows, kind of a precursor to things like Zach Galifianakis' Between Two Ferns or The Eric Andre Show. Space Ghost was depicted using animation cells from the original show, combined with video of real people that he would interview. Space Ghost didn't really step out of his world into theirs, and his guests were mostly transported to his show, but you know he'd be like a VTuber or something if they'd done this today. Interestingly, they also released music by Space Ghost, which is a great band name. 2007, HATSUNE MIKU. So MIKU is firstly a Vocaloid software voice bank, which means she's a virtual instrument that's created to simulate a human voice that anyone can buy and use for their own music. The sound was designed based on the voice of Japanese voice actor Saki Fujita, but she has no formal attachment or ownership of it. I watched MIKU perform live back in 2016, 1 month after we released Hyper Light Drifter, and she gave me the first idea for OFK. I saw this huge theater of people who were absolutely invested in a virtual idol and wanted to see something with that imagination on a more intimate scale, something more flawed. I wanted a virtual musician who would be making music in their bedroom, like a fan of MIKU. MIKU is the most fully fictional on this list, in my opinion. Her voice is computer generated. She's owned by a large company. So it's hard to draw any direct links to humans creatively involved in her identity. Bless you. This isn't inherently bad, but it is tricky, and I'll get to it later. 2017 Code Miko. Miko's a VTuber, Twitch streamer, and one of the biggest. She's voiced and engineered by a real person, Yuna Kang, who uses a motion capture rig to stream. I find this example interesting because from the beginning, she has made her real self visible on streams, calling herself the technician. She mostly interviews other streamers, sometimes plays games, sometimes does tech demos. She's at the forefront of this huge growth on Twitch of VTubers. And she has spoken about how hard the project has been on her mental health, which is another thing I'll get to later. You can always shout when I'm drinking water, or I'll shout. Beyond media examples, I encourage you to think about how we all have experience constructing our identities for the consumption of others. Obviously, there's an important line between yourself and a fictional character, but social media does only show a sliver of your real personality, and most of us give some thought to what parts of ourselves we let visible online, or even what we let visible at, for example, this conference. That's a stretch of the notion of virtual identity, but it is connected. That's enough of me nerding out about virtual characters, so let's get into me nerding out about creating virtual characters. Before it was set to be a virtual band, OFK was simply going to be a story, set in LA of indie artists trying to make something. So I knew from the start that I wanted it to feel small and honest, vulnerable, intimate. As a game, our goal with We Are OFK was to make a game experience that would welcome any fan of the music to experience the band in a deeper, interactive way. But in designing the characters we knew would become virtual, we developed our pillars from what we wanted to avoid from references. With KDA, too big. We didn't want to pretend we were pop stars. We'd be new to this audience. And personally, I'm new to singing and pop music, so our characters would not be huge, famous, overtly glamorous like KDA. Gorillaz, too fantasy. We wanted to be relatable and genuine, and while it's tempting to go supernatural with a virtual character who can be anything, we wanted our characters to be human and feel honest. Gorillaz feel honest to their creator's worldview, but they exist in a totally different reality by nature, in that they are talking gorillas. I mean, it's gotta be a reference to the Monkees. And Miku's too disconnected. We wanted our characters' identities and backgrounds to relate to their creators. Not one-to-one, no member of OFK is exactly one member of our team, even my character. And the stories are fictional, though inspired by our lives. But we wanted to be honest, and that meant writing from personal experience. MIKU and KDA feel strategically assembled, owned by a big company. We're small, and we wanted to take advantage of that. Also, the bigger your organization gets, the more pitfalls around representation and proper crediting. Before I dig into that, let's step forward into how we actually made all this. Character design. We wanted something that matched Jenny Yu's art style, the art director, with strong, straight lines, curved edges, not realistic, not overtly anime, not cartoony. We worked with our character designer, Nafisa Tung, to develop personal styles for each character that expressed their character. That came across as iconic, but not so high fashion that they were beyond relatable, although they are like way stylish. Then for turning them into 3D models, Jenny and Nafisa worked closely with our technical art director, Chelsea Hash, for a while to create beautiful models that match style from all angles and handled lighting right. We knew we'd need beautiful models, not just for the game, but for hopefully the existence of the virtual characters for a long time to come. So we felt the extra scrutiny was worth it. Mocap. Okay, so our animators, Taylor Reynolds and Devon Beasley, created all the animations for the game itself, but we needed a mocap, motion capture, setup to operate the 3D characters for live performance. We contracted a company called Polywink. They create the 52 blend shapes you need for the iPhone X facial mocap. If you've used Animoji, you've used this system. You upload your model, and for like $300 per model, their turnaround time is like 1 day, and they return it to you. It's incredible. So I made a clone of our main Unity project, and I hacked away what I didn't need to build a bare bones project for Luca to stream from. I used the ARKit Foundations Unity plugin to connect the iPhone to ARKit, and then connected it to some head IK that I'd set up so that it works with the upper body. And then I just run this in tandem with a companion app on my phone, which is installed by the plugin. And that's it. So when you see me running mocap in some examples, that's just common streaming software, OBS, that is screen capturing my Unity window. I'm about to invest in a full body mocap suit for live music shows, so pray for me and the tech setup for that, please. So, okay, operating it. Let's dig into the weird stuff. Let's talk about being a virtual character. I use this mocap setup for all kinds of appearances outside the game. Twitch streams, guest appearances, and now live music. About a year before release, I soft launched the character by starting semi-regular Twitch streams. I played games, I sang songs, or just chatted. Here's a quick clip.
Hey, this game is so thoughtful. Hey, cat.
Yeah.
I pet the cat. It very relaxes me. Oh, the cat gives me HP. The cat is the save point.
Oh, I love it.
Oh.
That's like
this
up
game
there
is
in my
good,
list
though.
of favorite save points.
Yeah, this game is good, though.
That's Eichenfeld, by the way. Shout out to Eichenfeld, yeah. And that's our co-art director, Nafisa Tung. Beyond live appearances, pre-recording the mocap became really useful for marketing opportunities where we didn't have the budget to create new animation. So, for example, when Dream's PS4's Impy Awards asked us to judge Song of the Year, I convinced them to let us say that OFK were judging the award, and then Luca sent in like a greeting message for their broadcast. Or when we got some upsetting early feedback from the game, we needed to post an important disclaimer message very quickly.
Hi, it's me, Luca. We hope you enjoyed episode 1 of We Are OFK. Itsu asked me to read off a few disclaimers here before we move on. Shoes in the house. We know that there are several scenes in this series depicting us wearing shoes inside, even on a bed. You may wear shoes in your house. We don't. And again, this is just a technical limitation of recreating our story in a video game. We're sorry.
You gotta remake the model with shoes off. You can't just make a sock-colored shoe. It looks horrifying. We tried. Mocap worked well for musical performances too. We did an acoustic performance of our first song, Follow Unfollow, for Day of the Devs. You'll notice here we did some full body animation in addition to the face mocap. So for this, we pre-animated the body, and then I live performed the head and neck on top of animation. It was a really bizarre feeling to perform that way, but I think it works. So I'll play you a bit of that.
Let it break, let it mend slowly. Give and take, get a bit lonely. Wide awake and still standing on the verge of tears or dancing. 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 Every time I cancel, every time I cancel you, I just wanna dance, so I just wanna dance with you. Is it falling apart? Was it already broken? Am I back at the start? Can I let all the hope in?
And that is our series composer Omniboy on keys. So I got a whole year of training as Luca by doing these things. So by the time we released the game and the EP, I was comfortable enough with running the tech, playing Luca, and singing live as Luca that I could do it in higher stakes situations. Here's one of my favorites. This is an interview with Rolling Stone, where they virtually inserted Luca into their New York studio. So he's chatting here with our songwriters, Luna Shadows and Tom Powers from The Naked and Famous.
And please welcome our first guest, the vocalist of OFK, Luca. Luca, welcome to the stream.
What's up?
It's so
I'm
great
alive.
to see you.
Thanks for having me.
How have you felt kind of seeing the story play out from week to week? And we're coming up on the finale very shortly.
It's embarrassing. I mean, like, there's a lot of personal stuff in there for all of us, and the writing team did a good job of working with us to make sure that, like, they weren't sharing anything that was too private or shit that we hadn't kind of dealt with. So it's a little weird.
Do you think that this really opens the door for other artists to get their music out through a video game medium specifically?
Yes, I would love to put all my music out through games only, but you know what that would mean. Like, so I'm already old and sad. I don't need to wait longer to get sadder.
If you're having trouble writing your game, just wait longer to get sadder. We did more elaborate productions too, the biggest being when we announced OFK at the Game Awards. For this, we worked with an animation studio, Art and Graft, to produce OFK's first stage performance. And we spent so much money on this, so I'm going to make you watch some of it, because it only aired once.
It's been a special night already, and now I get to share with you another Game Awards first, the world premiere of a new band. You heard me correctly. They're playing their debut single, Follow Unfollow. Please welcome, for the first time ever, OFK.
Is it falling apart? Was it already broken? Am I back at the start? Can I let all the hope in? It's the glow on my phone from a brand new vibration, and the numbers alone in a new combination. Sorry for the follow, unfollow. I'll be on my best behavior by tomorrow.
I'm going to cut it before the chorus. So, I don't know, listen to the song, please. I know. Gamers were so mad. They were like, oh, I can't believe like you're a new band and you just get to be on the Game Awards right away. Like your parents probably paid Keeley. I'm like, no, I've been working on this for like 4 years. I'm like, yeah. But we wanted to impress Keeley, so we made a big fancy thing. Gamers. Let's take a moment. Recently, we started doing actual live performances in the real world. It's always been a part of my hope for the project to see our band live beyond its video game, for fans to see that, like, no, really, actually, we're a band outside of the game, and you will see us on a stage. So, hey, hire us to play your events if you run events, such as this one, or a party. We'll play whatever, I swear. Okay, so this is where the talk's going to get a little bit sad, or at least less fun. I hope it's been fun. Operating like this was exhausting and rife with some dilemmas. Extra work. It's a tremendous gift for me as a performer type person to creative direct this game and give live performances, but it is a lot of extra jobs. When I was streaming regularly to get our Twitch account up to affiliate status, it meant working a whole workday and then refilling my water and sitting back down to the same desk to live stream. It's fun for me, but it is tiring and it's not sustainable. It also took extra work from our team so that they could interact with the band on social media. I had a lot of media training conversations with team members who were confused about how to discuss the project publicly, what was secret and what wasn't, how to talk about their work, how to talk to the band on Twitter. You may have noticed a pattern with all these videos. It's the Luca show. But OFK has 4 band members, not 1. Also, Luca is the only white one, and building a diverse team and story was so fundamental to how we built Team OFK. Whom we hired, who owns revenue share, full salary transparency. This is so important to the politics and ethics of our team. And we kind of backed ourselves into a corner. My character, Luca, is the only member of OFK who's played by a member of the dev team. The other incredible performers, and if you haven't played OFK, I can't recommend it enough just for their performances alone. But the other performers are professional full-time actors. And in working with your actors professionally, you don't ask them to work for free. But we didn't have budget to go back into the VO studio every time we got a promo opportunity. So time after time, the only character we could feature for these virtual identity appearances was Luca. We could feature other characters in behind-the-scenes art that Nafisa Tung, our co-art director, was making. And we write the Twitter from the voice of Itsumi, but it erects a big wall when only one actual voice is being heard. One exception was our feature in PlayStation State of Play. For this, I was able to chop up dialogue lines that we'd already recorded for the game, and by recording new lines as Luca, I recontextualized the other characters' lines to create a new interaction between the characters, which is very Frankenstein-y, but here's a bit of it.
War. War sucks. In a world full of war, where war is, just doesn't have anything to do with politics or race or imperialism. Out there, we look to each other and to our thick arms.
You done?
And you're like, how did they get them that thick? Is this like an alternate reality where arms are just that thick, or are they robot arms? Our last hope is arms.
Luca, focus.
Okay, sorry, for real. PlayStation promo time.
Yep.
I'm just supposed to introduce our band and the game about our band, right? Ooh, can we do something fun with it? Like, can we be like, why is it called State of Play? What are we, the president?
We've talked about these jokes. Hey, you.
Hi! We're still driving. Jay, I heard back from the mix engineer, and she's cool with getting song stems on Sunday.
Itsu! How's the PlayStation blog post going?
Are hashtags too much? I want to reach more people, but I don't think I trust people who use hashtags.
Itsu, you're the best at this.
I'm proud of you.
I just do things.
Carter, what you working on?
Just a little audio filter I cooked up for debug here.
Can debug make me sound like a demon?
Okay. Give me one more run through and we'll take a proper break.
So it works well. It just takes a lot of extra time, my free time, and I have my limits, and we also had to pull animators to work on this as well. As I share all this, to me, it kind of sounds like I'm making excuses for failures in planning, and I guess I am. The degree to which we leaned into creating virtual identities grew over time, and the time and budget for VO didn't. I put a huge chunk of my own savings into finishing OFK, and even with that, as indie games often are, at the end, we were tight on money. In hindsight, I would have reserved money to pay the actors for other appearances and set aside more time for me to develop the mocap rigs for the other characters. If we created more funded content, if we create it in the future, I know how to plan better, but we did set aside budget for marketing, and we ate into that with dev, which also often happens in indie games. We're doing live shows now, and those show budgets do not pay to bring actors along yet, but I hope they will, because as Luca, I miss my bandmates. We failed to keep the band evenly represented outside of the game. In the game, I'm proud of the way our team represents the characters you see on screen, their backgrounds and queerness and beliefs. But in virtual identity space, it's all Luca. Fortunately for now, the game and the music have the biggest audience impact by far, but for future OFK material, we'll have to be more diligent. One problem I would like to think we overcame was counterbalancing the Luca dilemma with team appearances. When we first started ideating the virtual band, I had this thought that we would be so secretive and pretend the band was fully real, create this huge mystery. But doing that meant hiding bits of the creative team's work. And sure enough, the very first day that we went public with We Are OFK at the Game Awards, this created interpersonal conflict. I thought I'd primed team members for the plan, we would acknowledge the dev team, but the characters would also get some credit for work. And I was wrong about this. Really quickly, I hurt members of our team. They felt hidden, they felt uncredited, and in cases where they fictionally shared credit with the virtual band, they still felt that loss of credit. So we pivoted, like very quickly. This one was fixable, and since then we've tried to build a world around OFK where the virtual band coexists with the team. Here's a little clip of a panel our team members talking with Luca for our Ludonarracon panel last year.
You know, I'm not even a musician, and this similar thing happened to me recently, where my friend was like, "Claire, are you in a band? Like, in music?" And I was like, "You know, I'm not in a band, but I am." You know?
Yeah.
So yeah. I was like, I guess it's working. You know, people are.
That's cool. Good.
Are getting what we're putting down,
and it's I feel like it's more fun this way.
So yeah, I guess like bonus that you get to call your game studio a band, which is like, and whenever someone makes that joke, like when's the album dropping? You'd be like, November. Please stream it. Oh, and here's our lead developer Jared Huntley talking with Luca for our Nintendo Switch announcement. I really like this.
Hey everyone, I'm Jared Huntley, lead programmer on We Are OFK.
And I'm Luca Lefay, lead singer of the band OFK.
We're super excited to announce that our music biopic game is coming to Nintendo Switch.
Yes! Ooh, I can play it on a tour bus. Ugh, I can't wait to tour together.
We haven't seen each other since that music video brainstorm at your place in LA in 2019?
Yeah, wow. And with the game on handheld, it'll be easy to play the new episodes that are coming out every single week, back to back to back.
Can't wait to share OFK's story and music with y'all.
Hey, Jared, can I get your opinion on tour outfits?
Hey. And then that guy has to go like that or whatever. The Switch guy. Because I don't remember that guy. Hey. But it works. And honestly, it's really cute. And it was fun to do it this way. After that shift, our character designer, Naf, no longer had to pretend to just be the band's stylist or fashion designer. They can take credit for designing the characters. Does it break the fiction? I mean, yeah, but also no one cares. No one cares. I think back to that HATSUNE MIKU show that inspired me, and I know no one believes she's real. And sure, we do sometimes confuse press when we tell them that the dev team are friends with the band with like a straight face, but it's the more caring approach and it's more fun for all of us, so they'll figure it out. The only thing I haven't been able to do is figure out how to get me, Teddy, and me, Luca, into the room at the same time. So I'm going to do that now. In a live motion capture demo at GDC running off of Unity. So, nobody? Hi, Adriel. Great. Who here's is anyone here a game developer? Yeah, applause. You didn't clap. I think it's literally everyone here, right? By definition, if you pay more than $100 to sit in a chair and listen to someone talk in San Francisco, you're a developer. Anyway, yeah, it's weird talking to you like this. We haven't done a lot of live shows, so usually I can't see the audience and they can't whoop. Oh, wait, did anyone here work on KDA? Just before I say anything. Okay. Like nothing but love for KDA, but we use their name a lot for this talk title and like we didn't ask for permission or whatever. Anyway, yeah, so I guess it's obvious I'm played by Teddy. We're similar enough that we have the same opinions about big stuff. Similar backgrounds, but different lives for sure. Teddy's non-binary. They came out during production of the game, and that's been interesting for the two of us to navigate. I don't know if I should change to be more like Teddy. I guess there wouldn't be any harm in that. Sometimes in interviews, Teddy will use some truths from their life, but not fully. It's important that we respect their privacy, but they have to write and perform as me live, and I know that in a pinch, it helps them if our lives converge a little bit. It's a work in progress. I don't know. The events from our video game take place in the near past for me and in the distant past for Teddy. We don't share any stories directly, but we definitely share states of mind, struggles that we've both had. I don't know if I'm comfortable being this version of myself from 5 years ago. I'm not always proud of who I was 5 years ago. I was sometimes oblivious to my friends. I was a little dodgy, flighty. When you finish a project, I feel like most of us want to move on. Like we started it with different ideals or different priorities, and it feels weird to be stuck in that place. It's kind of like performing a song I wrote a while back. It's an old feeling, but I have to reconnect with it somehow, I guess. I'm proud of OFK and its worldview and its messages of hope and minor victories in the face of existential fears and imposter syndrome and trouble communicating with people we want to love. I think today, Teddy is better at loving than I am, but I guess I can just fast forward, catch up to Teddy, and see if we can move forward together. Okay, bye. Bye. It worked. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'll speak up. Thank you. Thanks, Carrie. Oh, it's caught. Okay. All right. Smooth sailing. Oh, thank you. Really? They said my posture is flawless for the camera. Okay, so the future and dangers. I've touched on the difficulties and dilemmas we faced with OFK's virtual identities, but I want to revisit those as a focal point here. Because these days, when it comes to technology, parasocial relationships, AI, game companies, especially for-profit ones, especially publicly traded companies, they are by and large a lot more about what they can do with technology than what is right to do, what is healthy, what is caring. Scale. As a team grows, how you coalesce the values of that team into a single voice is hard. You could argue we already do that in games, but it is more pointed with virtual identities. You can't ask a game a question and get an answer, usually. A game can't make an appearance at a fundraiser. A game can't get in an argument. Brands. Brands are not identities. The Wendy's Twitter account is not a person. A game's publisher Twitter is not a person. Hell, most game studios' accounts are not a person, and neither is OFK. You have to keep that in mind. Virtual identities are the most unforgiving sieve of whether a group of people are aligned in their ideologies, because you have one voice speaking for everyone, often live, under pressure. Let's talk about parasocial relationships. If you're not familiar with this term, it refers to the one-sided relationships that develop between fans and the artists they follow. It's a very common practice among social media influencers today to encourage parasocial relationships, by which the influencer will ask questions to their audience or encourage participation or affiliation through a Discord. You know, like they'll post a photo and be like, out here eating chips. Like, what's your favorite flavor of chips? Let me know in the comments. And then, you know, comments. And many fans come to feel that they have a closer relationship with their idol than they do. When you operate a virtual character, this shit gets extra complicated. How to be genuine when you're not wholly real. When I play Luca, I do try to invent fiction on the fly to preserve my own privacy. I'll make up details about Luca hanging out with other members of the band earlier that day, maybe eating chips. It's a great word. Sometimes I base those realities on my own reality, but only loosely, just to help me keep facts straight when I'm trying to make this stuff up live. What I refuse to be dishonest about is emotion. Getting on a Twitch stream and telling the chat that I'm feeling depressed when I'm not is asking for emotional labor for a fictional construct, and to me, that crosses an ethical line that I've drawn. On the flip side, if I am feeling sad or anxious, I will share that with the audience because it helps me feel that I'm speaking from the heart. Plus, they know that somewhere on the other side of Luca is a person, and if they do any homework, they know it's me. So in our case, I feel like it's okay to share to a certain degree. What I'm saying is that the dangers of parasocial relationships, of manipulating people's emotions and emotional investment in order to get them to buy a product, is not okay. And you do have to be supremely careful when you're operating a virtual identity. Forgot I have glasses. Representation. I'm ending on this one because it's the most important. Arguably, OFK is even a half measure because I'm a white person up here with an undue amount of visibility from the rest of our team. OFK team friends, if there's any OFK, can you stand up? Is anyone in the crowd? Is Adriel still here? Shout out to Adriel. If you have questions after the talk, please ask me, but you're also welcome to talk to the team too, because you've just heard a lot of what I have to say already. The games industry is paying better attention to the equitable representation of diverse stories and perspectives on screen, gradually. We're also seeing more diverse hiring, gradually, with studios being more careful to pay people whose stories they're telling. We are still failing miserably at the balance of power. And most game studios that push their BIPOC or queer employees to the front of the team photo, those photos are not the highest, those employees are not the highest paid or the most senior. And it's crucial to be asking more directly, who profits from the success of a game? Who profits? Diversity funds at consoles and publishers have to go beyond seeing a PowerPoint slide with diverse faces on it before they're giving money, and actually ask, who owns revenue share? Who is empowered to make choices? We had a number of discussions about diversity funding with outside partners who didn't ask for any of that. And we were like, please, take our receipts. So, should you create a virtual identity? In the interest of giving you the most information, and in the interest of you giving my talk a good review, here's a slide with some pros and cons. So fill out your survey at the end of the talk, please. They tell me you got to say that. It's part of the cons. You have to invent news story on the fly. But honestly, I don't know if fans will hold you too closely to it. And I got pretty good at dodging details during live streams by just being charming and ding, winking. You got to make sure your mocap can wink. By the time my co-writer Claire Gia and I finished all the scripts, I had a pretty strong grasp of Luca's daily life and mannerisms, so this got easier. There can be big representation issues if one virtual character is repping the whole team, but that happens already, I guess. Every GDC talk this week will be people representing their whole teams. But with virtual identity, the difficulty gets higher. Operating a virtual identity is essentially running a live service game, right? Except the live content is your social media and more content that you produce. I guess you could make your social media manager the virtual character if you have one and can afford, have that role. But that's not always the skill set or the project ownership of a social media manager inherently. Acting, writing a news story on the fly. It creates a strange new pressure on your social media presence to stay active even after release. Because if you're not keeping it up after the game releases, are your characters dead? KDA's last tweet is from 2021. Is KDA dead? This tweet is just an emoji. Like anyone could have tweeted that. I don't know if that's Ari from KDA. And ALVIN and the CHIPMUNKS last tweet is from 2020. Have they finally followed their creator to the grave? Look at all these hashtags. Like, this is a cry for help. Like, find them. Find ALVIN, Simon, and Theodore. Especially Theodore. Pros. You get direct engagement. As game devs, we rarely get to engage directly with our fans. So this is pretty great, at least for me, an extrovert. Time to talk with fans and hear what they want to say to your characters is really special. Promotion. I've shared a lot of fun examples of what we got to do. It opens up a lot of creative avenues for spreading the word during an era where promoting your game is a thankless, endless, grim social media landscape, and TikTok is already tipping down on how it treats its users' attention. But it also helps you pitch stuff, right? We got Rolling Stone. We got to be on Rolling Stone because I was like, yo, we can do this virtual thing. And they were like, whoa, that's so cool. And it is so cool. Social values. If you can navigate a lot of the social and team dynamic pitfalls of running a virtual character, it's a great pointed vehicle for communicating your team's values to the world. A way for your team to speak to more current events that may not be touched on in your game's story. Virtual characters getting political is maybe a scary prospect to you, but games not being political is a more dangerous reality. Stand for something. You can't have a virtual identity without an identity. So, that's Luca and me. I have failed in a lot of ways building and running this character, most pointedly failing to get the other characters live the way Luca is. But I've been up here to hopefully share that in an honest way. So I'll leave you with this. If you're going to create a virtual character, find your way to be honest. Be genuine, be authentic through fiction. And the same really goes for any game you make. Please stand for something. Thanks. Remember when people used to do this when people were clapping for that? Where did this go? There's microphones. I can't see anything, but oh, thanks. Does anyone have questions or want to challenge me to a game of Yu-Gi-Oh? Oh, can you go? Is it cool if you go to the mic? I'll repeat the question anyway, but just so everyone can hear. I can't believe the mocap worked.
It's way too high.
Oh no!
I will just talk like this.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
It's a coincidence purely. I'm wearing a HATSUNE MIKU jacket.
What?
I know, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. But anyway, it's happened a lot with mostly VTubers where sometimes they're under contract and their personality can sometimes blur a bit too far. And then if they get replaced or they graduate, so to say, then that character ceases to exist. If there was an instance, I would say Luca for this example, where something happened where you could not perform the character anymore, what would be the plan for the band? Or would you replace it with a different person to play them? Or is it too intrinsically tied and the band would cease? Like, what would happen in the replacement
Yeah,
scenario?
that's interesting. I was just looking at the Seraphine Twitter this morning. Seraphine's another
Yeah,
example
exactly. Yeah,
from
that's
Riot.
a good example.
Seraphine was Riot's follow-up to KDA, and she's like an indie singer-songwriter, and she got a lot of criticism for being manipulative with parasocial relationships because she was like, I'm feeling depressed. I was looking at her Twitter because like her last tweet was just like, I need to spend more time offline, and everyone was like, good luck, Seraphine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a Gorillaz live stream recently, and I learned, I didn't know this, that the characters are now played by voice actors, or at least some of them are, because like I think Jamie Hewlett, the artist, didn't want to play his character anymore. He was just tired of doing it, and I think that's fine. I think replacing is interesting. I think if I just get tired of carrying it, or we have no money or whatever, I think like you just have to be careful to be honest. You have to accept that people know it's fake, and don't be like, I'm ill, and then like kill your, like, I just don't think that's
I think that's fair. I think that's I like the honesty angle of it, and being able to like say if you do move on, being honest also about like that degree of separation, because again, VTubers tend to use the terms of graduation and just straight up vanishing, and then they can't take their identities with them because of the corporate angle, so then it looks like they just vanished entirely. So yeah.
Sorry, the question for camera was like what to do if you're stopping operating a virtual character. Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is like, I touched on this a little bit, but just accepting that like you're not fooling anybody is really important. I think for a lot of VTubers, that separation, they feel like a protection that they have their VTuber as a separate person. So they really want to believe that that wall is strong and impenetrable, but people know that there's a human being, right? So like, again, it's one of those moments of like being careful about what the...
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, great session, by the way.
Thank you.
What would you say is the biggest difference between you and Luca, and why did you create that difference?
Ooh. So the question is, what's the biggest difference between me and Luca, and why did we create that difference? He also said, great session. So Cameron knows.
It was.
Write your feedback. Take your reviews. This is the same thing I do on Twitch streams, which is I'm stalling while I think about the question. I mean, so for one, like, it's not like I started from me. Like Claire and I wrote the characters from the point of view of just writing any of their characters, but I did have an idea that it was going to be a self-insert. So actually, like, there were elements of, for example, during the character design process where NAF was pitching ideas, and I was like, oh, I don't think I can make my voice embody a certain design. I was like, oh, we need to kind of, like, admittedly, I pulled the visual design closer to myself. Something that I know that at least I did in an exercise for all the characters was to take I learned this from like a writer who I really admire. It was like, take something from yourself that you are the most critical of or ashamed of in your past or present, and put that in a character. And it's a helpful but risky way of being mean to your character. It can be hard when developing a character to give them like real flaws that are really unforgivable. So Luca has some of that. Like his plotline has to do with like being indecisive and being flaky, and these are things that like I felt like I had let people down in my life. But beyond that, like, it's not exactly a process of like starting from me and moving backwards. It was a little bit more of like what you can seed into any character. So I think in that way, it was just like building any other character, except occasionally I'd have to be like, oh, I want to sound like me, and like I want to be able to be kind of like obnoxious and overly chatty because I am those things at my worst or whatever. Does that answer the question at all?
Yeah, thanks.
Cool, thanks. Hi.
Hello? Cool. Hi, thank you so much for your talk. Confession, I'm a VTuber. I started being a VTuber before I became a game developer, and then I became a game developer in software. But because I was an independent VTuber before developing software, a lot of my own personal identity has kind of become wrapped up in kind of my own brand, because that's something that I managed for myself. So as I continue to kind of navigate the game developer world, trying to figure out where that brand kind of like intersects with like my game developer persona, and like how to kind of manifest that in kind of like public appearances, especially as somebody who is like trans and non-binary, and trying my best to like be visible to like the world and whatever. So I was wondering like if you have any insights on what happens when the virtual identity so closely overlaps with your own personal identity, and kind of like navigating that space?
Thank you for that question. Now I'm all nervous because you're like, you know how this goes probably better than I do. The question is, and forgive me for a bad recap, but like, what to do when your own personal brand or identity is getting closer to the characters, and how to deal with that in terms of engaging with the community. I guess like my specific experience is that, once again, for me, it was one of those things of like, I don't think people care as much as I felt like they did. It's like, oh, how do I behave on my personal Twitter versus when I'm in control of the OFK Twitter or of Luca's Twitter? Like, how do I, make sure those are separate? The thing is like, there's for me at least, there's less overlap. There's a lot less overlap with like who's following me as Teddy, the game developer or whatever, and who's following the band. And even when I stopped being less secretive, or when I started being less secretive about it, being like, okay, like I'll talk about Teddy's existence. Still, it's not like I saw some like, I wasn't like pouring followers from OFK into Teddy. Like an interesting example of this is that some like musician friends of mine who are in like really big bands, like Coachella bands, like nobody follows them and nobody cares. Like even if, I mean, people care, but like they're there to follow the project or the specific thing. And so it's already hard enough if you want to get people to cross over. So again, just in my experience, like it's okay if they get closer, and I worry less about like, oh, I have to be super different in both, because like no one's really watching as closely as I fear that they are. And certainly not like a critical way. I mean, people are always critical on the internet, but that's my anecdotal experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got 3 more minutes. We got time. Hi, yeah.
Hello, best GDC talk ever, by the way.
Thank you. I'll speak up. Thank you.
How did your relationship to making We Are OFK change by having a character that represented so much of yourself and your own issues in the game?
Good question. What's funny for me, the question is, how did my relationship with making We Are OFK change when there's a character who has so much of me in it, sort of. Also, they said best talk ever for camera. Best talk ever. I'll maybe stop doing that. Yeah, so I guess like as I was saying to an earlier question, like for me, actually, what's funny is I think the stuff that I put into the characters that I'm the most like have struggled with or feel the most ashamed of in my life is actually not in Luca. Luca's stuff is a little bit more like obvious. Luca's flaws are very obvious from the front, and he gets like vocal criticism from his friends. So he's actually kind of the easy one. Whereas like the other characters have some like deeper, again, like no one-to-one. I'm not, like using real life stories, but I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely is a convenience that his is a little bit like right in your face, and it's not as like, for me, like painful in the way some of the other stuff is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Okay. I was just wondering if there's ever times where your belief or like Luca's beliefs kind of push you towards like compromising your own beliefs, and if that were to ever happen, how would you kind of navigate that? Like, would you rein him in more, or would you let him kind of let loose and in a way compromise your own self?
Yeah. The question is like, what do I do if Luca's beliefs separate from my beliefs? How do I handle that? I mean, like, his beliefs are not going to diverge from mine on like important social or political issues, right? And maybe that is another luxury and privilege for me as the person operating him, that our team is pretty aligned in political beliefs, or very aligned, I would hope. But even so, it's not like I'm checking with the team anytime he makes a political comment or something. That being said, like the one thing I can think of, which is maybe not a belief, but like a preference, is like Luca is a little bit more hyper confident than I am, or at least projects hyper confidence. Can be dismissive of criticism. Can just gloat, or not gloat, but like boast more. And as I age, I'm like trying to be quieter as a person. Quieter as a leader, softer touch in terms of trying to care for people. And Luca's like still kind of barreling through riding privilege and just having a grand old time. So that's a little awkward for me, like on live streams to do, but it's usually in a pretty safe environment. It's not like he's like making fun of people in the chat. He's not directing that towards real people. So that's about the most tension I felt so far, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. We got time for 2 more. If we'll go here and then 1 at the mic, and then we'll talk to you afterwards for anything else. Hi, yeah.
If we could actually take this to a wrap-up room,
Great.
It'll be in room 2014 and 2018 down the hall. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.